This is a heavy case. This is a case about a child, so please be aware of that. So first things first, I know my pronunciation is not gonna be perfect. Sometimes I know my grammar can slip, once in a while. But overall, I think you are completely fine and I will do my best. Okay, if you, by any chance, if you speak Portuguese, if you have friends that speak Portuguese, I have more videos in my channel and they are all in Portuguese. So send this video to your friends, or if yourself speaks Portuguese, go and have a look. You might like it. My purpose is to bring cases that normally, if you are an English speaker, you normally wouldn't listen to these cases because they have a huge media cover, but only in their countries. I just want to say that Portugal is actually a very safe country, very peaceful. Not a lot happens. We are considered one of the top 10 most safe countries in the world. The last websites that I went to look for, we were in number 7. So pretty safe. We don't have a lot of crazy things happen here. Good, good. But sadly, we have good people and horrible people in every country, and Portugal is no different. I'll bring you today the case of Joana. And Joana, it was just an 8-year-old girl when she disappeared from her house. The case of Joana happened, and I was a child, but I do remember this happened over here. So I just feel it's a little more personal, more close to me. I made you guys wait too long. Let's start with the case of today. The case of today is about Joana Isabel Cipriano Guerreiro, and she was born on May 21st of 1996. She shared a house with her mother, Leonor Cipriano, and with her stepfather, Leandro Silva. Joana had 2 younger brothers from different relationships of her mother, so they were half brothers, and they all lived in a little village called Figueira in the city of Portimão, Algarve, the south of Portugal. Joana's father, the biological father, he lived in Lagoa, that also belongs to Algarve. Who knew Joana described her as a very well-behaved, sweet little girl. They say that she was really nice, she was really polite, that she helped her mother with her younger brothers as much as she could, that she actually was really mature for her age, and yeah, she was described as a sweetheart. Joana had a neighbor called Ofelia Severino, and she was the mother of a little girl that went to school with Joana. The 2 girls, they get along. So Ofelia knew Joana. She said that despite Joana being a very calm, quiet child, she said that if you look at Joana's eyes, you can see that she was sad inside. Leandro, Joana's stepfather, he appeared in her life in 1999 when Joana was only 2 years old, and they really got along. Actually, it was a good stepfather relationship. Leandro said again that Joana, she was really sweet, that she helped her mother all the time. She really liked her, and Joana also really liked Leandro. So despite not sharing actual biological connection, they get along really well, and I think Joana really looked at Leandro as a father figure. Leandro said that he used to call her my little filhota. Filhota, it's I don't even know how to translate. Filhota is like my little girl, my little baby girl. On September 12th, 2004, it was happened a little party on the city. It was called Burbigão. It's like a local party, mostly because of saints. Every city has a saint, and you have parties during the year for that saint. But this night will not be remembered for good reasons. This will be remembered as the night that Joanna disappears. And Joanna only have 8 years old. Still during the afternoon, Leonore asked Joanna if she could do some shopping, and Joanna did. Again, she was very well behaved girl. She went to the local little supermarket, but it was closed because of the festival. So she went to a local cafe that also sold a few groceries. This cafe was called Cafe Celia. And she went there. She just bought a gallon of milk, some tuna cans, and she left. Who worked in this cafe? It was Ophelia. She said that it was very fast when I came in. She said hi, bought the things that her mother told her to buy, and she left. But a couple hours later, Joanna's stepfather and her uncle, they came to the cafe and they asked Ophelia if she had seen the girl. And this was around 10 p.m., so it was not particularly early anymore. João and Leandro, they asked Ophelia. She said that she was there, but she left with her groceries and she didn't know where Joanna went. We still didn't talk about him, but Leonor, Joanna's mother, she had a brother. His name was João Cipriano, and he was in Leonor's house. They said that maybe something happened on the way because she was not back home. João and Leandro, they left and they keep looking for Joanna. One Ophelia closed the cafe around midnight. She decided to went to Joanna's place to see if Joanna was back home already, if everything was alright. So she went, she knocked on Leonor's and Leandro's house and around midnight and she asked if Joanna was already home, if they found her. And they say they didn't. They didn't know where Joanna was. They said that they were looking for Joanna for hours around the blocks. They were calling for her, but they didn't find her. Ophelia asked if the police already knew about the disappearance, and they said no. So Ophelia herself called the police. Lenore said that she didn't call the police to report her daughter's disappearance because she didn't have credit on her cell phone. So Ophelia was the one to call the police. And I just want to say that that's really weird for me. What do you mean? Like, your daughter disappeared and you are not calling the police because you have credit? Again, Portugal is a very safe country, small country. We are a tiny country, and especially on this little village, everyone knows each other. So it's not very uncommon to go to the neighbor. I think if you was really worried, like, my God, I need to call the police, any neighbor would let her. I don't know. I think if it was up to me, I would just go to the first neighbor. And besides that, we also have our 911. In Portugal's case, it's 112, but you don't pay to do this kind of calls, and they could have called 112. But moving on, one of the things reported at this hour by Ophelia and another neighbor is that they found strange how calm Lenore was. They say that she looked a little bit cold. She was not emotional. She was not hysteric. They said that the rest of the family, they were like her. Everyone was calm. And these two neighbors, they thought that it was actually quite uncomfortable to see how normal they were reacting on that situation. But I just want to stress out that everyone reacts in a different way. I don't want to point figures. I think that's quite unfair. After Ophelia called the police, they start looking for Joanna and they look around the area. They look 4 days and no luck finding her. Her family, they also start to do pamphlets and posters and they spread around looking for Joanna, saying that if anyone knew anything, please tell them. But not the family, not the police. They didn't find anything. They didn't find Joanna. They didn't find any leads. they didn't find anything. On the posters that the family were spreading around town, it says something like Joana is 8 years old, and the last time that she was seen was next to the church in Figueira around 8 p.m. on September 12, 2004. She had a top, an orange skirt, and she was wearing red shoes. Around this time, the family members also started giving interviews to the media, and there was a time that most people started to look at Leonor with some kind of suspicion. She seemed calm and a little bit unbothered about her daughter's disappearance. People say that she was very cold, didn't seem like a typical worried, desperate mother. And a lot of people, because of this interview, start to look at Leonor as maybe a possible suspect on Joana disappearance. But also some people start talking, especially in Figueira, where Joana was from, and some people believe that she was taken by an outsider, someone not from over there, that everyone was distracted in the ferry, and maybe a stranger come by and saw Joanna on the street and he took her. 4 days later, the case was passed to the police in Portimão. After another 4 days, it was passed again to Faro's police. Leonor, Joanna's mother, keep giving interviews saying that she just wanna her girl back, and if anyone has any lead, please come forward. If you have her daughter, please come forward. That just want to have her daughter back. She said that her brothers really miss her. Lenore also said that she wasn't sure anymore if her daughter was alive or dead. She wasn't sure. The detective responsible for Joanna's case was Gonçalo Amaral, and just a side note, Gonçalo Amaral is quite a controversial and public figure in Portugal, and most because of Madeleine McCann's case. If you don't know, Madeleine McCann is pretty much the most famous child disappearance case in Portugal and maybe in UK as well. She was a little girl, I think she was 4 years old, and her and her family was also in Algarve on vacation, and she disappeared one night, and the responsible by that case as well was Gonçalo Amaral, and it was pretty much a mess. The British press destroyed Gonçalo. They hate him, and mostly because Gonçalo always defend and always believed that the responsibles were her parents. Gonçalo started to interview the family. He said that the declarations that they were given, they were not adding up, and that made Gonçalo very suspicious. So Gonçalo had the idea that since the stories were not lining up, he would call everyone and he will do the interrogation at everyone at the same time. So this way they couldn't go outside and plan the story. They need to speak up what they know for real. And he did. Gonçalo really want to know if, first of all, Joanna had arrived at her home or not, because the family, first they say that she didn't, that she disappeared during the way home. They had a confirmation that yes, Joanna appeared at her place on that day. She went to the cafe, she did the shopping, she went back home, and she arrived at home. And from pretty much that point, since they had the confirmation that Joanna, yes, arrived at home, they completely sure that Joanna's disappearance, it was fake. It was a distraction. It was all made up to cover up her death. 9 days after the disappearance of Joana, Joana Cipriano was arrested by authorities for suspicions of murder. And only a day after, her brother, João Cipriano, was arrested as well for the same suspicions. The police took Leonor and João and they confessed that they killed Joanna. And what comes next is pretty much one of the most uncomfortable part of the case, at least for me, because yeah, they confess, they say that they had killed Joana. And João, the uncle, he agreed to do a demonstration, how they kill and dispose of the body. And this simulation was recorded and is honestly disgusting. This guy, I shouldn't say this, I'm just here to tell you the story and the facts and what happened and what was reported. But yeah, I'm gonna give my little opinion right now. And I say this man is a moron. I think he's a moron, to be honest. I think he's so dumb that he doesn't even realize, or he doesn't, I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's really cold and he doesn't give a fuck about Joana and what happened to her, or if he's just a completely moron and he doesn't have the intelligence to understand how serious the situation is, because on this record he appears calm. He sounds like he's in a coffee telling a story about, I don't know, a movie that I saw yesterday to her friends. It's so horrible. He's talking about the murder of an 8-year-old girl, his niece, a child, and he's talking like if he's nothing. His story was that Joanna arrived at home and she brought the groceries, but she didn't have the money that her mother gave her. So they were upset and they started to beat it up Joanna. Two grown up as people, they start to beat aggressively on a child. And again, this is a side note. These things, it doesn't happen again so much often. I think the mentality is changing away. But again, I came from a small village and this happened in 2004, back when I was a child. And even worse, as far as you go back, it was pretty normal. I don't know if it's for you guys as well. I don't know which country are you watching or which culture is yours. But over here in Portugal, until yeah, the 90s and the early 2000s, it was pretty normal. The parents beat up their kids. It was look like a good thing, because you are giving discipline, and this way they will have respect for you. So you will be a great father if you beat up your kids. Yes, that's how people think back then, and that's how still a lot of people think in our days. What I think is completely disgusting. You don't understand. It was not a slap, okay? Not a slap. He was a proper beating. Joanna came back home. She didn't have the money, according obviously with João's story. She didn't have the money and they beat her. And he said that he punched her and he was so strong that she knocked with her head on the corner of the door and she just fell unconscious. And he said this part like, oh yeah, I beat her and yeah, she was dead. I don't know if it's cruel and sadistic or if it's a moron. To be honest, I think it's for me is a hillbilly. Like, do you understand that kind of vibe? Kind of person, doesn't have a lot over here. Came from a farm, so and again, a side note as well, I think Joanna was abused. I think she was beat up quite frequently, and I think it was quite normal. These things happened to her. I remember in the beginning of the case when I told you that Ophelia said that she can see sadness in her eyes. I think Joanna was mistreated. I think she was being physical abused because imagine if this theory, because we're going to talk about other theories, but imagine if this theory is true and she come back to her home and she doesn't have the money and the mother and the uncle freak out and they start beating her up. They are two grown-ups, at least they should be, and they are beating her up without any control on themselves on this little girl. Not just for them, for a lot of parents back then, when they beat up their kids, it was not about discipline. To be honest, it was more about control, about I can do whatever to this little child because I'm stronger. I'm physically stronger, so I can do whatever. I think João was beating Joana has, he would beat in a grown-up man. He was beating up this girl, and I think it was about, I don't understand a lot about psychology, but that's the way I see it. They were abusing her, mistreating her just because they could. Just because she was weaker, she was smaller, she was innocent, she wouldn't fight back. And the fact they were both of them. I don't know how to explain my thoughts. It's a sadistic control. I think it was not the first time. When João was telling the story, he said that he turned to Leonor and he said that they should call an ambulance. And Leonor said no, that they shouldn't. If the story is true, if this is an accident, your daughter is laying down on the floor, maybe alive. Because that's another thing. If this story is true, how they know for sure, that she was dead, you know? Maybe if they actually call an ambulance, she could survive. Leonore said no need. So instead of calling medics, they went to grab a bag to put Joanna's body. And again, this is João's story, at least for now, because it changed it. And this is the good version. This is a version where it was an accident, and even this version is really upsetting. After putting Joanna on a trash bag, they took her body to a field next to the house, where later João went there, grabbed her body back, and he would dismember Joanna in pieces. And after he dismembered her body in pieces, he put each piece in a plastic bag and he put on the freezer. And in the end, João, he will take to a pig's farm nearby and they will give Joanna's body to the pigs. And again, I came from a farm. Pigs, if you give them a dead person body, is gonna eat it. Yeah, pigs eat pretty much everything. That's true. A pig would eat a person, and this is one of the most remembered parts of the story. I think they always remember about this part. You give this child to the pigs till they eat it. But as I said it, this is a version of the story. Leonor and João, especially Leonor, they keep changing the story, changing little details. Neither does he, but she's a not relatable person because she keeps changing. But this is the one that I told you it was first João told, and is one of the theories that most people believe what happened. Later, João and Lenore, they said that they only admitted that they had confessed because they were pretty much tortured by the police. They say that the police beat them up to get the confession. They beat them up, and they only gonna stop if she confessed. And Lenore is reluctant that that's what happened. She only confessed because the police and some pictures of Leonore actually appear and she had black eyes, and Leonore said that was the police officers, and yeah, that's why she confessed. The police found blood on the door where João said Joanna had knocked her head, and they also found blood on the mop of the house, although the results were inconclusive and they could say it was human blood, but they couldn't say it was Joanna's blood. They also found blood on the freezer, light up with the history that João told us, but again, the results were inconclusive, so the police couldn't say for sure there was Joanna's blood. And I honestly don't know why every single trace of blood it was inconclusive. Maybe the technology was not that good back then. Maybe it was not enough blood. I don't know, but that's really frustrating. At least for me, it's frustrating. I think for everyone, it's frustrating because if there was proof that was Joanna's blood, it would be such a more easy case, and the police as well will have much easier case, and it wouldn't be so many space for debate and doubts. Also, there were some theories that said that maybe it was inconclusive because Leonore had cleaned up the house. They also found traces of humans' clothes and human flesh on the pig farm where Joanna was supposedly dropped, although these results also came back inconclusive. Again, everything is inconclusive in this case, but there were traces there, so that kind of light up with João's story. There is more theories to this case besides what João initially said, and one of the most famous and disgusting theories. This is what people back here in Portugal, most people believe this is true. This theory said that pretty much Joanna went to do her grocery shopping and she came back home, and when she arrived at her home, she saw her mother and her uncle, obviously brothers, and she saw them having sex. And incest relationship over here, but again, nothing was proven. I don't even know why this theory appears. This actually was a police theory. This is a theory that Sal Amaral and another detective that were investigating the case, they both believe this theory. They believe that Joanna saw them having sex, and that's why they freak out and they murder to shut her up so that she couldn't say anyone. There is no proof to this theory. People say that João and Leonor siblings have a very weird relationship. I don't know exactly what that means. I couldn't find anything else. But most people back here in Portugal, they all believe that's actually what happened. They believe her mother and her uncle were having an affair. I said João is a hillbilly. I shouldn't say that, but again, the vibes, the vibes of this family, the vibes. Clarify, no evidence. This theory was never proven, but again, he was defended and believed by the two main detectives in this case. The second biggest theory in this case, it actually comes from Leonor, and again, is a theory because nothing was proven. Pretty much in 2009, so the disappearance was in 2004. She was arrested in that year, and in 2009, a few years later, she came to the press and she pretty much said that they didn't kill Joanna, that Joanna was not dead, that she was struggle financially and she didn't have means to take care of her daughter. So she planned to sell her daughter to a Spanish couple for 50,000 euros. A few resources said that Leandro, do you remember Leandro, the stepfather? He said that that theory doesn't make any sense, that they were not super wealthy, but they didn't have needs like that. They were not desperate for money, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. What I might think happened in this case, I might think that in Leonora's head, she thought that it would be better for the people to see. I think she was trying to get some sympathy, honestly. It was better for her to be seen as a mother that couldn't take care of her child, so she sell it for another couple than to be knew as a mother that kill the daughter and throw it to the pigs. What Leonor said, but nothing was proven. The stepfather says that they didn't need the money, but to be honest, I don't think they have that much money as well, but I don't know. Another thing that I found weird is like why that she waited so long to tell this. Why that she didn't tell us that back in 2004 when the investigation was happened. Yeah, just the fact that Leonor also only say that 5 years after the case, I just think was made up. Again, I think it was to gain sympathy, and I think she failed. According to Leonor, the death happened because Joanna found out about this deal. She found out that her mother was planning to sell it to another couple, and she threatened to tell the police. And that's why Lenore and João have to kill her. If she told us this story to get some empathy, selling a kid, selling a son, a daughter, selling a human being. In this theory, Lenore said that she didn't kill Joanna. It was only João. He took Joanna to this meeting to meet this Spanish couple, and when he come back, he smelled as blood. Joanna was not with him, and she was buried in near fields. Nothing of this is proven. Leonore's attorney, he said that he didn't feel just like Leonore's attorney. He felt like Joanna's attorney, you know. Even with this messy case, João and Leonor, they were both charged and they were considered guilty by the court of law for the murder of the little Joana Cipriano. If you are paying attention, I didn't mention anything about finding a body, and that's because they didn't. That's also one of the most difficult things in this case, and I think why it caused so many doubts, because the police never found Joanna's body to this day. I think if the pig's theory is true, and that's the theory that most Portuguese people believe, I think it lines up, because if this is true, so yeah, they wouldn't find never a body. And this actually was the first Portuguese court case where the body was never found. So there's that. Leonor Cipriano, she was convicted to 20 years and 4 months, and her brother, João Cipriano, was convicted to 19 years and 2 months for murder and concealment of a corpse. The video with the reconstruction of the murder was not used in court, although that video was released a few years ago, and that's why I saw it, and that's why I hate it. There is a famous state on this case, and it's pretty much, João said, I didn't hurt her, I just killed her. They were heard in court, 45 people, family members, neighbors, police, people in the village. During the trial, they argued that Leonor never gave a damn pretty much about their kids. They say that she was a neglectful mother. Say that João and Leonor tried to confuse the police and interfere with the investigation, with all of the theories and all of the change that they were saying. But they believe that João's story that he first gave probably is more close to the truth. Despite everything, they say that João's versions were more relatable than Leonor's. And I just want to point it out that even Leonor's attorney point that she was a bad mother. What for me is actually saying something, you know, if your attorney, the person that you hire to defend you, he has to admit, because I'm pretty sure he had to admit, there is no way of denying that she was a bad mother. You know, actually, that's one of the things that I don't have a lot of doubts in this case. But Leonor's attorney also said that there was not enough evidence to convict Leonor, and again, I kind of agree as well, because they don't have a lot of physical evidence, but for the court there was enough, and they were both considered guilty. I'm pretty sure you're gonna find weird, maybe yes, maybe not, I don't know, but America, UK, you have life sentence. In some states, you have the death penalty. In Portugal, maximum prison sentence that you can get is 25 years. That's it. That's it. And it's not even. Imagine if you kill 2 people, you get 25 years plus 25 years. One maximum sentence for each murder. Now you can kill 100 people. The maximum you can get is 25 years. You cannot get more than 25 years by Portuguese law. Leonor got 20 years, Juan got 19 years, and in my viewing, that's not enough for this case. I mean, this case is it's horrible, it's disgusting, everyone can see, and it's so cruel, it lacks humanity, And I think that's one of the reasons why Portugal was so shocked and this case was so big back then. I just get frustrated because I knew if it was in America, England, whatever, they will get more. They will probably get life sentence with minimum of 40 years, 50 years, and that just doesn't happen in Portugal because we are so vanilla. I just feel like in most cases, most criminals don't have the deserved penalty because in our case, it's just the law. In 2008, the Supreme Court of Justice decided to reduce João's and Leonor's sentence. So Leonor that initially got 20 years and 4 months and João that got 19 years, they were reduced for 16 years and 8 months for each. By the end of the day, none of them served the full sentences. Leonor only served 5/6 of her sentence. She was in prison for 14 years and 6 months, and she was released on parole on February 7, 2019. And around a month later, Joana Cipriano left the prison as well. Also in parole, the brothers never talked to each other anymore even after they left prison. And Leonor keeps saying, they both keep saying they are innocent. They only confess because the police forced them. And Leonor also said that her main focus right now is to find Joana. She said that she believes her daughter is still alive. They also said that they wish they could reopen the case and look for new leads because that way they can prove their innocence. Almost everyone believes that the mother and the uncle did it. Most people believe that they were having sex, and most people believe that they disposed the body in a pig's farm. But again, nothing was conclusive. I also agree with the majority of people. Again, maybe I'm not biased because that's always what I heard, but I think they did it. I think they did it. I think it was not smart enough to make up all of that story. A book about Joana was released, and this book is called Estrela Joana, and just means the stars of Joana. I look for, but I don't think that is the version in English. I think this book is only in Portuguese, and this book was written by Paulo Pereira Cristóvão. He was a police inspector and he wrote this book, and this book is about the investigation, what they found, how it was, the process, everything. Guys, that's it. That's my first case in English. There was a huge case in Portugal. Everyone knows the story of Joana Cipriano. She deserved better. Thank you so much. If you listen to me to the end of this video, it means a lot that you listen to me. It means a lot that you at least give this video a chance. Please don't forget to subscribe and follow me. Really want to know. I'm very curious about your opinions. Where do you think I should improve? Which case do you think I could cover? Bye.